me the same thing. And Warren, gold is the safest bet in the world. It never loses value. It's the ultimate hedge. And yet, I've spent my entire career watching that belief quietly, steadily lose people money. Now, I know that statement alone probably just made a few thousand people angry, but that's okay, because by the end of this talk, you'll understand exactly why something truly terrible is about to happen to gold, and why most people who think they're protecting themselves are actually walking straight into danger. Let me start by painting a picture. Right now, there's panic everywhere about debt, inflation, interest rates, government spending, the dollar losing value. And every time people get scared, there's this one instinct they all share. They rush to gold. It's been happening for centuries. And yes, that instinct used to make sense, but not anymore, because the world that made gold powerful doesn't exist anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying gold is worthless. It's beautiful, it's rare, it's timeless. But it's also one of the most misunderstood assets in the world. And what's coming next will shake a lot of people who thought they were being safe. I'll get to that in just a few minutes, I promise. But first, I want to tell you a short story that will help everything make sense later. Back in 1971, when Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, the world changed overnight. Until then, every dollar in your pocket was tied to a certain amount of gold. That gave people confidence they could touch their wealth, they could hold it. But after Nixon's announcement, the dollar became pure faith. It wasn't backed by gold anymore. It was backed by trust. And you know what happened? Everyone said, this is it, the end. Gold will skyrocket forever. For a while, they were right. The price of gold soared. People felt brilliant for buying it, but by the 1980s, something strange happened. Gold stopped being a store of value and started being a symbol of fear. And fear, as I've learned in every market crash, is never a good long-term investment strategy. Now, before I tell you the reason gold will collapse again and why it's not because of inflation or interest rates or central banks, let me ask you something. If gold is truly the perfect hedge, then why hasn't it kept up with inflation over the last 50 years? Think about that. If you had bought $100 worth of gold in 1973, today you'd have something like $6,000 worth. Sounds impressive, right? But if you had invested that same $100 in a simple S&P 500 index fund, you'd have well over $20,000. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Gold didn't protect your wealth. It slowed its decay, and that right there is the first crack in the myth. But there's another one far more dangerous that almost no one talks about, and this one is why I said something terrible is coming. Because gold is not just losing value against stocks or technology, it's losing relevance. Now, let me explain what that means. For centuries, the power of gold came from scarcity. There was only so much of it. It couldn't be printed like paper money. But today, in the digital age, we've created something even scarcer, something that exists beyond borders, beyond vaults, beyond governments. And no, I'm not just talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about trustless assets, systems where value isn't stored in metal but in math. And for the first time in human history, the core reason gold ever mattered, scarcity, is being replicated without the need for the physical world at all. Now, I know that sounds like science fiction, but it's happening right now quietly beneath the surface. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous for gold holders, and they're holding an asset that the modern economy is slowly outgrowing. Let me give you a simple example. Every year, the world mines about 3,000 tons of gold. The supply grows steadily, predictably, but the demand, the real use case yet hasn't changed much in decades. Jewelry, central bank reserves, some industrial applications, nothing new. Meanwhile, trillions of dollars have moved into digital assets, sovereign bonds, and tech-driven investments. So when I say something terrible is coming for gold, I don't mean a crash tomorrow morning. I mean an erosion, slow, invisible, devastating, like rust on a safe you thought was indestructible. And that's how people lose, not with explosions, but with quiet, steady decay. Now, before I explain exactly what triggers that decay and why it's already started, I want to clarify one thing. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. You see, most investors today are reacting emotionally. They see headlines, they see government debt, and they panic by what feels safe, but they don't realize that the rules of safety have changed. What was safe in 1971 isn't safe in 2025 because the new global economy runs on speed, not weight, on innovation, not scarcity. And that's the shift almost no one is talking about. Now, you might be thinking, but Warren, central banks are still buying gold, aren't they? And yes, they are, but you have to ask yourself why. Central banks buy gold for the same reason people hang old paintings in their offices. It's a symbol. It's not about function anymore. It's about confidence, optics, appearance. But symbols don't generate returns, and what's coming next will expose that difference brutally. Now, I'll tell you exactly what event will trigger this gold decline in just a moment. But I want to share something that most people overlook, something so obvious it's invisible. Gold is priced in dollars, always has been. So when you buy gold because you don't trust the dollar, you're still trusting the dollar. You're just doing it indirectly. Think about that for a second. The very act of buying gold is anchored to the currency you're trying to escape. That's not independence. That's irony. And the moment the global economy finds a truly independent way to store value, a system that doesn't need the dollar or gold or even physical reserves, the world's oldest hedge will lose its purpose. That's the terrible thing I'm talking about. And before I explain what that system looks like, let me give you a short mental exercise. Imagine this. It's the year 2030. The U.S. government issues a digital dollar, programmable, traceable, instant. Most people accept it without question because it's convenient. But behind the scenes, it gives governments a new kind of power. The power to see and control transactions like never before. Now, what do people do when they sense that kind of control? They run to gold again, but this time it doesn't work because global trade has moved beyond physical stores of value. And this is where the trouble begins. When liquidity shifts away from gold, when financial systems stop using it as the settlement backup, the floor beneath its price disappears, that's not a dip. That's a redefinition, and most people won't realize it until it's too late. Now, I can already hear the questions. Warren, if gold isn't safe, what is? Good question. I'll answer that. And I'll tell you exactly what you can do to protect yourself in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the illusion of stability, because every time gold goes up, you'll see the same headlines. Investors rush to safety. But if you zoom out, you'll notice something strange. Gold's biggest surges always happen during chaos, and its biggest declines happen during recovery. In other words, gold feeds on fear. That's why it can never be a long-term wealth builder, because it depends on people being scared. And that's not an investment strategy. That's emotional addiction. Now, if you're holding gold right now, don't panic. I'm not telling you to sell everything today. I'm telling you to understand what's really going on beneath the price charts, because when this shift completes, and it will, people won't just lose money, they'll lose faith. And when faith leaves an asset, it doesn't come back easily. I've seen it happen before, with silver, with oil, even with entire industries. But gold's fall will be different. And because for the first time, it's not being replaced by another metal, it's being replaced by a mindset that values speed, transparency, and adaptability over tradition. And I'll show you what that mindset looks like right after I explain the real trigger that sets this collapse in motion. So stay with me here, because what I'm about to say might sound small, but it changes everything. The real danger to gold is data, not supply, not demand, data. Because when global trade becomes data-driven, when transactions settle in milliseconds, when trust can be coded instead of mined, the old need for hard assets fades away. Gold can't compete with that. And I'll prove it to you with a single example in just a minute. But before I do, tell me in the comments, be honest, do you still believe gold will save you from inflation? I'm curious to see how many people still hold that view after what I'm about to show you, because once you understand this next part, you'll never look at gold the same way again. All right, so where were we? Yes, data. See, most people don't realize that value today isn't measured by weight or shine anymore. It's measured by information velocity, how quickly something can move, how easily it can be verified, and how much trust it can carry with zero friction. Gold doesn't move fast. Gold doesn't communicate. Gold doesn't produce, and that's its biggest weakness, because in a world where value can travel across borders in a fraction of a second, an asset that just sits in a vault starts to look, well, like dead weight. And that brings me to the real trigger, in the moment where this slow decay turns into a sharp drop. It happens when digital value systems, whether that's central bank digital currencies, blockchain settlements, or tokenized real-world assets, become mainstream for trade settlement. That's when gold's last job disappears. Because right now, gold still acts as a emergency fallback for confidence. It's like a safety net, dusty but comforting. But once global trade has an alternative that's faster, safer, and transparent, that net becomes obsolete. You can already see this in early experiments. Countries like China, India, and Brazil are exploring settlement systems that don't touch gold or the dollar. they're settling trade in database units, effectively saying we don't need your vaults anymore. And when that becomes the norm, the floor under gold collapses. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not predicting the end of gold's price tomorrow. That's not how it happens. It's slower. It's psychological first. Here's what it looks like. Investors start noticing that gold isn't reacting the way it used to. Inflation rises, but gold doesn't. Central banks print, but gold stays flat. Then confidence wavers. Institutions start moving their reserves elsewhere into yield-bearing assets or digital equivalents. And then one day, gold drops sharply, not because of panic selling, but because demand simply evaporates. That's the terrible event. It's not a crash. It's an abandonment. And when abandonment happens in finance, it's permanent. Now, let me pause here because I know some of you are thinking, Warren, people have been saying gold would fall for decades, and it's still here. You're right, but survival isn't the same as strength. Think of gold like a famous actor whose fame outlived his career. Everyone still recognizes the name, but no one buys the ticket anymore. That's what's happening to gold. It's still the symbol, but no longer the substance. And what replaces it, that's where this gets interesting, because the replacement isn't just one asset, it's an ecosystem. We're moving toward a multi-asset world where store of value isn't one shiny object, but a network of trust, yield, and transparency. That could include blockchain-based settlement systems, tokenized commodities, sovereign digital currencies, and even shares of productive companies. And that's what I've always told young investors. Don't just hold what's scarce. Hold what's useful. Because usefulness is the new scarcity. Now, before I get to the practical steps, the things you can actually do right now, I want to drive this home with one more story. Back in 1998, I was sitting in a meeting where people were panicking about the Asian financial crisis. Everyone was talking about how to protect their portfolios, gold, silver, foreign bonds. And someone asked me, Warren, what are you doing to hedge? I said, I'm buying companies that sell hamburgers. The room went silent, but I wasn't joking. Because when panic hits, people still eat. They still live. They still buy things that make life work. That's the difference between a productive asset and a protective illusion. Gold protects your fears. Businesses protect your future. And that's the message people need to understand now before this next transition happens, because once this shift from physical scarcity to digital utility completes, gold won't just underperform, it'll be forgotten. Now, I promised I'd show you one clear example of why this change is irreversible. Let's take the world's central banks. They're sitting on roughly 36,000 tons of gold, but what do they do with it? They don't lend it, they don't compound it, they don't even use it to settle most of their trade. It just sits there. Meanwhile, trillions of dollars flow daily through instant digital interest-bearing systems. So ask yourself, which of those two assets is evolving? Gold hasn't evolved in 5,000 years. The financial world evolves every 5 months. That's the mismatch. and that's where the storm forms. Now let's talk about you. If you're an investor, a saver, or just someone trying to protect their family's wealth, what do you do when the traditional safety net is slowly burning away? The answer is not panic, it's pivot. And I'll break this down into 3 steps you can take right now to prepare. Step 1, diversify out of dead assets. If your portfolio includes gold, don't dump it in fear, but start trimming it. Gradually reduce your exposure to any asset that relies purely on sentiment rather than productivity. Replace that portion with assets that generate output. That could be dividend-paying companies, real estate, or even short-term treasury instruments, things that work while you sleep, because safety isn't about what can't move, and it's about what can adapt. Gold can't adapt. Step 2, study the new settlement systems. Most people don't realize how fast the financial infrastructure is changing. Central bank digital currencies, stable coins, cross-border tokenization, these aren't fads. You don't have to buy into crypto to understand this. Just study the trend, know what programmable money means, learn what interoperable settlement means, because the next crisis won't be about who has the most gold. It'll be about who understands the new pipes. Money flows through. Knowledge will be your hedge. Step 3, build value you control. This one is personal. For decades, people have trusted systems, banks, governments, vaults, to protect them. But the best protection you can have isn't in a vault or a wallet. It's in the value you create yourself. That might be a business, a skill, an idea, something that can't be inflated or confiscated. Because no matter what happens to gold, to the dollar, or to any asset, personal productivity always compounds. That's the lesson that never changes. Now let me tie all this together. Gold had its era. It was brilliant. It protected empires. It built trust. It fueled trade. But every system eventually meets its evolution point. The same thing happened with salt, with silver, with land. What used to be currency became commodity. What used to be sacred became standard. And we're watching that transition again. Not to say we're in real time. That's why I say something terrible will happen to gold, not because it's evil, not because it's manipulated, but because it's outdated. The danger isn't that gold will crash, it's that it will quietly stop mattering. And that's far worse, because when something stops mattering, nobody sounds the alarm. People just move on. Now let's talk about one final misconception, because I know it's floating in some minds right now. Some of you are thinking, Warren, if the system goes digital, won't people want gold as a backup just in case? Good question. But here's what you have to remember. Backup systems evolve too. The next gold isn't a metal. It's a protocol. It'll be coded redundancy, not buried reserves. It'll be data copies, not physical coins. When confidence shifts from physical possession to verifiable transparency, the very idea of needing gold fades. That's the silent extinction, and it's already begun. Now, let me end with this, because I don't want you to leave here feeling pessimistic. The end of one era is always the beginning of another, and the investors who thrive are the ones who see the shift before it becomes obvious. Right now, everyone is still clinging to the old map, the one that says gold equals safety. But the world has redrawn its borders. Safety now comes from adaptability. If you can think faster, learn faster, move faster, you'll survive the storm that's coming for gold. And if you understand what replaces it, if you can see the structure of trust being rebuilt digitally, you won't just survive, you'll prosper. Now, I've been around long enough to know that most people won't take this seriously until it's too late. They'll wait for the headline, they'll wait for the crash, but by then the real damage will already be done quietly, invisibly, in purchasing power lost and opportunity missed. So take this as your warning, not of disaster, but of transition. Because the terrible thing that will happen to gold is that the world will finally outgrow it. And when that happens, the people who built their future around the old safe bet will look back and realize the real hedge was never in a metal, it was in motion. So keep moving. Before we close, I want to hear from you. Seriously, comment below and tell me where you think the next store of value will come from. Is it digital? Is it tangible? Is it something entirely new? I read your comments, and